Behind his success story, there was a big drama. A misfortune which could have broken many men. However, in his case, this adversity brought a real purpose, a real meaning to his life. But who is he, and what am I exactly talking about? He is one of my biggest inspirations. He is the one and only. What's up, champ? Welcome back to the channel.
That's tight. That's
Super real. Thank you, coach. I love you.
Winning 10 out of his last 12 fights, he's most definitely on fire at the moment. A black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, he is a very sharp, aggressive and dangerous striker who recently knocked out a legend of the sport, the one and only Dominic Cruz.
In this coming in round, in the fourth one, coach told me, throw a bomb after your punches and you will find.
At the moment, he's extremely close to a title shot at Bantamweight. And his next fight on February the 18th against Corey Sandhagen will most probably be decisive. And although everything is going great at the moment, although he's running through every single competitor in the Bantamweight division, things were not always that positive in his life. In other words, behind his success story, there was a big drama. A misfortune which could have broken many men. However, in his case, this adversity brought a real purpose, a real meaning to his life. But who is he, and what am I exactly talking about? He is one of my biggest inspirations. He is the one and only
Marlon Chito Vera!
Born and raised in Ecuador in a middle-class family, Marlon Chito Vera was a problem child who was always getting in trouble.
So many street fights, and I just like it, and if I see a friend fighting and he was getting his ass kicked, I would jump. And then
Full of energy but lacking discipline, he was always getting into fights purely because he enjoyed fighting.
Honestly, I just think I had a lot of energy. I thought I just like the adrenaline, and it was just like a feeling, like I just like to be involved in a fight, or
Throwing stones and breaking expensive cars, stealing and causing problems were the main activities which he and his friends were engaging in on a daily basis. Although his brother and sister were both very well educated, although they were both going to college, Marlon had simply no interest in school. He grew up in the streets, and up until his 16th birthday, he was doing nothing productive with his life. Up until the day a friend of his took him to a local jiu-jitsu gym in Ecuador.
I think Jiu-Jitsu found me. Like, a friend told me, like, hey, I'm training at this gym, I think you will like it. And he just took me one day, dropped me off, and then I started training. So I think if
From that moment on, Marlon would never look back. He became obsessed with the sport of jiu-jitsu from the very first training session. He completely fell in love with it, attending all available classes and spending many hours on the mats.
honestly, not really. Like, when I started training, it was like, okay, now I'm doing it every day. And in Jiu-Jitsu they have like beginners class, the advanced class, kids class. I was doing every single class I could do.
Fully devoted to mastering the sport of jiu-jitsu, Marlon stopped drinking, he stopped smoking, and he stopped hanging out with his previous friends. It took him a year to earn his promotion to blue belt. And as it could be seen by everyone in his circle, he was changing in a very positive way. Still only 17 years old, Marlon got offered a professional MMA fight. It was for a local small-scale promotion in his home country of Ecuador. Having literally zero experience in MMA, Chito decided to accept the challenge.
I think, like, when they offered me my first pro fight, they were like, hey, we have a show next week, and the main event fell through, so you want to step in and see if you really want to do this? I was like, sure, let's do it.
In his official MMA debut, Chito faced an experienced kickboxer who was almost twice older than him.
So they put me against like a pro kickboxer, an older guy. I was 17. I was fighting at mid-30s guys, kind of like on his prime. And, you know,
Although Chito's only striking knowledge was the one gained in the streets, he managed to win the fight by taking his opponent to the ground and eventually submitting him. If we had remained standing, he would have knocked me out, Chito shared in an interview many years later.
if we were to strike, I would say for a minute, he probably would knock me out. Because he just have way too much striking.
The win was not brilliant. Chito's striking was non-existent, while his opponent's grappling and wrestling were also very low level. Yet again, this fight showed Marlon that if he dedicated himself to the sport, if he put all his focus and energy in it, he could potentially make a career out of it.
I was, you know, I did well. I did it just with one martial arts. I'm like, sure, I think we can do this. So,
after compiling a record of 6 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss on the local scene in Latin America, Chito joined The Ultimate Fighter, a reality program organized by the UFC. UFC is the biggest MMA organization in the world.
La más grande de mi vida es la oportunidad que tengo yo para salir adelante, para realmente quedarme en este deporte y entrar a la mejor liga del mundo, que es el UFC.
He started very well there, winning his quarterfinal fight with a knockout. However, due to a skin infection, he was forced to pull out of his semi-final fight against Guido Canetti. And that was a very heavy and painful blow for the young Chito Vera. Why? At the time, he had already met his wife Maria Escobar, and his oldest daughter, Ana Paula, was already born. As I told you in the beginning of this video, Chito was dealing with some real problems behind the scenes. Ana Paula, his daughter, who was born in 2011, suffered from a very rare condition, a neurological disorder called Mobius syndrome.
My daughter, everybody knows what happened with my daughter. She have a syndrome called Mobius.
Put differently, she was born with incapability of moving her eyes or smiling. As much as Chito wanted to become a successful mixed martial artist, as much as he loved competing, the biggest motivation behind his decision to become a professional fighter was his daughter. His biggest dream was to see her smile, and he knew that the only way to make that happen was through a very expensive facial muscles surgery.
La importancia de ganar esta competencia es que firmas con UFC un contrato. Lo invertiría en lo que necesita mi hija, ¿no? En pagar su cirugía. Esa es mi primera.
But how could a person who never ever cared about school, a person who grew up in the streets, causing trouble and having no other interest but fighting, earn the required money? Well, the answer is to be found in the question: fighting. So when entering the TV reality The Ultimate Fighter, Chito had only one goal, and that was winning the format and signing with the UFC. And when he was told that he could not fight in the semi-final, his whole world seemed to be falling apart. The emotional Chito was caught on camera crying because of the huge disappointment.
Tranquilo, eso es tu inspiración, ¿sí o no? Ese momento es único y es tu hija, carnal.
Lo primero que haré estando en el UFC es pagar lo que mi hija tiene, ¿no? Porque...
However, although he was unable to fight in the semi-final, the UFC was already impressed by his skills and offered him a contract. The sun was now shining brighter than ever. The dream was still alive. He had now signed with the most profitable and influential MMA organization in the whole world. But that also meant that he would have to move to the USA, and not temporarily, but permanently. Simply because the highest level gyms, trainers and sparring partners were to be found there. In other words, he would have to leave his wife Maria Escobar and his 2 children back in Ecuador in order to go to the USA in pursuit of a successful MMA career. Why would he not take them with himself, you might ask? Because at that particular moment, he had a total of $6 grand in his bank account. An amount of money completely insufficient to take care of a whole family in California for even a month. Chito kissed his wife and promised her that once he had successfully established himself on American soil, once he was making enough money, he would bring her and the kids there.
But the first thing I will do is bring my family to California and start living together. I have 8 months living by myself, and it's a lot hard. It's something that you don't want to do it.
Maria, who was his biggest fan and truly believed in his potential, listened to him and stayed in Ecuador with their 2 little kids.
you know, most people will be like, no, I don't want you to leave. Who's gonna help me? Blah blah blah. She was like, go for it. Go and make it happen. And she waited for me. And that
From that moment on, it was all or nothing for Chito. However, his UFC career did not start ideally. He lost 2 out of his first 3 UFC bouts, and things seemed not to be going his way. But the dream of bringing his family to the United States and putting a smile on his daughter's face kept his spirits high and helped him to rise up.
the rest of her life. But that was a turning point for me when I saw her, especially with the conditions she had. I was like, I cannot leave this kid down. I cannot just like be another young couple that break up and they couldn't find a way to figure it out.
He won his next 3 fights in a dominant fashion, finishing 2 out of these 3 opponents. Chito seemed to have found the right formula, and his hard work and dedication were finally paying off. With the money he had earned fighting, he managed to bring Maria and his children to the United States, which was an extremely important step forward in his life. Having his family by his side gave Chito the necessary inner peace, which he needed in order to be fully devoted to his craft, and which he needed in order to deal with all the obstacles which he was facing on a daily basis. His wife was taking care of the house and the kids while he was completely dedicated to becoming a better mixed martial artist.
She does everything for me, and she minimized my life in a way that focus on training, stay focused, stay motivated. I make sure everything is good at home.
And just when all the pieces seemed to be falling in their place, Chito had to face adversity one more time. He lost his next 2 fights in a row, which brought a lot of doubt and made him ask himself whether he was good enough to compete at that level. Although he was at his lowest point, with the moral support of his wife, he managed to gather all his powers and come back even stronger. In his next 12 fights, he won 10 times, getting the finish in 8 of the fights, and beating legends such as Frankie Edgar and Dominic Cruz. Look, Chito is undeniably on fire at the moment. And his next fight on February the 18th against Corey Sandhagen will most probably be the last step before a potential title shot at Bantamweight. And although his goal of becoming the Bantamweight champion of the world has not been achieved yet, he has already accomplished what mattered the most to him. In 2018, 4 years after signing with the UFC, he managed to pay for his daughter's facial surgery. After years of insanely hard work, blood, sweat, and tears, Chito made it happen. He brought a smile to Ana Paula's face. All the pain, doubt, and worry, all those moments of giving everything but receiving nothing in return, finally paid off.
When you do everything to win, when you put everything aside, life gives you a good victory.
Chito's story is nothing but inspirational. But what makes Chito special? He's obviously a brilliant grappler, a powerful, aggressive, and technical striker.
Oh! He's got the back. He's on the neck. He's on the neck. He's got it. That's tight. That's it. Wow.
But the one component, the one attribute which truly separates him from the rest is his mental toughness.
I just feel like the more grounded I stay, the more dangerous I'm gonna become, and I can.
Marlon Vera is not here to be popular or to be liked. He is here to be a great champion and provide for his family.
Come and I can use this platform just to be a, put a mask and be an idiot, and it's just not my thing. It feels so good to be myself. And
he believes in hard work, dedication, and consistency.
Just keep doing what got you here, which is consistency, work. We all have a different path.
And although he was not blessed with the greatest talent, he was definitely blessed with a constantly burning fire and the willingness to get better every single day. He does not portray a character or try to be somebody who he is not.
Out of my heart, not just fucking talking, not just becoming a fucking, influencer for being somebody these days. I really believe deep down in my heart, I'm gonna be a world champion. I'm gonna hold the UFC belt one day.
He is as real as it gets.
I'm very focused and committed to beat the fuck out of Corey Sandhagen. I'm very committed to train every day and push myself. Very committed to get better and keep my head in the right place.
He fights to live, and he lives to fight. He is a true family man who managed to bring a smile to his daughter's face, although life had different plans for her. He started from scratch and reached the top. This is immigrant mentality. This was the story of Marlon Chito Vera. Champ, thank you very much for watching. Make sure to stay tuned to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Ba, ba, ba.